at least his memory was true to life and true to reality. But so much of the time, our memories aren't like that. In our minds, we recall that that tree was 200 feet high. When I was a kid, no, when you were a kid, it really wasn't like that. It wasn't that good. And I tell you, I'm having a kind of a nostalgic longing and a little remorse right now because of the price of gas. Because you know that I grew up in California, and California was a car culture. I mean, it was all about the cars. Growing up as teenagers, it was all about the cars, and a close second was the girls. But the cars were first. The cars were king. I haven't quite gotten over it. I've almost gotten over it. Bree Hill and I have almost gotten over it, but we still have the car thing. And cruising in my day was an art form. I mean, we'd get in our cars, and we'd go to downtown Sacramento, and we would circle with thousands of other kids around the state capitol, over and over and over and over. It was an art form. And I was thinking, well, how much was gas when I was in high school? And I knew it was 30-something cents a gallon. Well, I looked it up on the internet. In 1972, when I graduated from high school, it was 36 cents a gallon. And I was thinking, wow, 36 cents a gallon. And look what it is now. But then I did a little more research, and I found out that adjusted for inflation, that 36 cents a gallon would be $1.36 in today's money. But more than that, there's one more adjustment. It's called the adjustment for disposable per capita income. In other words, if we measured how much disposable income we had in today's dollars as opposed to then, gas would be approaching $3 a gallon in today's dollars. So it really wasn't that far off. But now we're getting into $4 or more. Now it's a little bit of a different story. And so suddenly we're realizing we might, instead of nostalgically longing for $2 a gallon gas, we might have to make some adjustments in the way we live, in the way we view cars, in the way we view transportation. This whole car culture, a part of the American dream, may be a thing of the past. We may need a new American dream. And we may be realizing that a culture based on consumption and waste and planned obsolescence in a time of shrinking resources is no longer a possibility. And people are starting to maybe realize that and wake up to the fact that maybe we need a new American dream. But anyway, we all have the tendency, this nostalgic longing for what we call the good old days. Familiarity. Even if that familiarity involves some pain and suffering. You know, there's some of us who are still stuck a little bit in the 60s. This nostalgic longing for the idealism of the 60s. And, you know, for some people the 60s was either the best of times or it was the worst of times. Now, someone once said that if you're a Democrat, you think it was the best of times, and if you're a Republican, you think it was the worst of times. There was this idea, and this is the thing about it that I want to hold on to, that I think is still true. There was this ideal in the 60s that love could change the world. You know what? As a minister of the gospel, I still believe that. Love can change the world. But this is what we didn't realize. How difficult, how tough it would be to do it. You know how hard it is to love somebody, let alone love everybody? I have a hard enough time loving my wife and kids. I have a hard enough time loving the people that sit in these pews. I have a hard enough time loving myself. So when we say we just need to love everybody, wow, that's much easier said than done. And yet I still believe that love can change the world. And so when we recite this affirmation of our church, love is the doctrine, or love is the philosophy of our church. We understand that this is a big, big challenge, and we need to pray for the gift of love, the greatest gift. And that's what Paul said in that famous Corinthians chapter. If I have tongues and speak with men and angels, if I have faith to move mountains and have not love, love, the greatest gift. And the older I get, the more I understand I need to seek and pray for this greatest of gift, the gift of love. Because if anything can be saved in this world, it will be saved by love. So if there's anything we want to long for in terms of nostalgia, it's that one. But that was the first voice, the voice of the people to Moses, to go back to where we were, to serve the Egyptians. And then there was a second voice, and this was the voice of Moses to the people. And this is what he said: "Fear not, but stand still and see God's salvation. The Lord will fight for you if you keep quiet." Stand still. Listen. Listen to God. Don't panic. Don't just do something. Sit there. Stand still. Listen. Tune in to the voice of God before you do anything. Now that's something I do have some nostalgic longing for, is a radio on a car that you can actually tune in. Have you ever been there when you're trying to get that station and you've got those obnoxious digital buttons and you either go up or down? Whatever happened to the dial? And listening to God, being quiet in the presence of God, meditating, contemplation, prayer, whatever you choose to call it, is like tuning in to the divine voice, that deep center that's within us, that voice of love that's deep within us, the voice of God, tuning in, listening, aligning ourselves. And that's a very difficult thing. You know, people think that contemplation is easy, that meditation, that prayer is a pleasant kind of spiritual experience. But when you quiet yourself and still yourself and pay attention to God, it can be very troubling, because things start to bubble up from inside. And that's why people don't want to be quiet. It can be very troubling, very challenging, very demanding. You know, in about a month or so, Connie and I will be leaving for my sabbatical leave, and the first part of that will be a time of contemplation, being with God in nature. In fact, we'll be going to a Roman Catholic hermitage in the middle of the desert in southern Colorado. No TV, no internet, no phone, no store, no nothing. Just quiet. And I always find that challenging, because I'll be truthful with you, I have a hard time shutting my mind down. But this was the voice of the leader, Moses, to the people. Be still and listen. And when we retreat into this interior castle, which is what St. Teresa of Avila called it, the interior castle, this quiet, centered place, this deep, protected, peaceful place, we draw strength, we draw peace, we draw confidence. We get our marching orders so that when God speaks and says, move here or go there, we can do it decisively. We can do it confidently.